The suburb was a quiet grave that night, its stillness hiding secrets that burned in the dark. I'm Lila, a ghost in this neighborhood, always watching, always catching the moments people think they've buried. My bedroom window faces their back porch, a shadowed nook where the air hums with unspoken sins. I didn't mean to see what I saw, but some stories grip you by the throat and won't let go. This one started with a glance, a touch, and a betrayal that lit the night like a spark in dry leaves. Her name was Diane, late 30s, with a body that moved like a secret and eyes that held a restless storm. She was married to Paul, a man who lived for his business trips, leaving her to fill the lonely nights alone. But it was his stepson Caleb who filled the air with danger. Caleb was 21, all lean strength and quiet intensity, with a gaze that could unravel you. That night, Paul was across the country and Diane was on the back porch, her silk robe catching the soft glow of a lantern, her hair loose and wild. Caleb was there too, bringing her a glass of wine, his presence like a flame too close to tinder. I was at my window, a glass of bourbon in hand, the suburb's silence a low hum in my ears. Their porch was lit by a single lantern, its light catching Diane's silhouette as she leaned against the railing, her robe slipping off one shoulder. Caleb stood close, his t-shirt tight across his chest, his movements slow, deliberate. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said, his voice low, carrying across the yard. She laughed, soft but nervous, and took the wine he offered. My bourbon burned my throat, but I didn't look away. He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers as he handed her the glass, and she froze, her breath catching. The lantern light cast a warm glow over her skin, highlighting the curve of her neck, the dip of her collarbone. "Caleb," she said, her voice trembling like she was fighting herself. He didn't answer, just leaned in, his eyes locked on hers, and I saw the spark, guilt, desire, the kind of hunger that drowns out reason. My heart quickened, my glass cold against my fingers. This wasn't just a kind gesture, it was a fuse, and they were lighting it. Caleb's hand lingered on hers, steady but bold, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she tilted her head, her robe slipping further, revealing a sliver of skin. The suburb was silent, but their world was alive, charged with a heat that had nothing to do with the summer night. I should have closed my curtains, should have gone to bed and let them have their sin. But I stayed, my eyes locked on them, my pulse a traitor. I lit a cigarette, the flame trembling as I watched them teeter on the edge of something they couldn't take back. The back porch was a stage now, the lantern light casting shadows that danced with their desire. Diane stood by the railing, her robe barely holding on, the silk clinging to her curves like a lover's hands. Caleb was close, too close, his hands on her hips, his fingers digging in like he was claiming something he had no right to. I watched from my bedroom window, my cigarette burning low, my heart pounding like I was the one crossing the line. The night was still, but their world was electric, alive with the tension between them. "Diane," he said, his voice a low growl, and she shivered, her hands gripping the railing. "Paul's gone," she whispered, but it was a lie, and they both knew it. His hand slid up her side under the silk, and she gasped, her head tilting back, exposing the line of her throat. I could see it all, the way her lips parted, the way his fingers traced her skin, the way their bodies leaned into each other like they were starving. My cigarette ash fell, my breath caught as I watched them slide deeper into the abyss. The lantern light flickered, casting a golden glow over her skin, highlighting the sweat on her brow. His lips grazed her jaw, slow, deliberate, and she leaned into him, her hands moving to his chest, tugging at his t-shirt. The fabric gave way, revealing the hard lines of his body, and I felt the heat of it secondhand, but just as potent. I thought of Paul miles away, trusting her, loving her. I thought of the life they'd built, the promises she was breaking. But here she was, letting Caleb's hands roam, letting his touch unravel her. The suburb's quiet was gone, replaced by the sounds from the porch, her soft gasps, his low murmurs, the rustle of fabric as her robe slipped to the floor. His hands were bolder now, sliding down her thighs, pulling her closer against the railing. She didn't stop him. Instead, she wrapped her arms around his neck, her breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. My own breath was shallow, my heart racing with a mix of shame and fascination. I was just a neighbor, a stranger, but their desire was pulling me under. Caleb's lips found her neck, leaving marks she'd have to hide, and she arched into him, her body yielding in a way that screamed betrayal. The lantern light caught the sweat on her skin, the tension in his arms, and I saw the guilt in her eyes, a flicker of doubt that was quickly drowned by want. My cigarette burned my fingers, and I cursed under my breath, my eyes still locked on them. The suburb was asleep, but I was awake, a witness to their sin, my own longing, a traitor I couldn't silence. They moved closer, their bodies a rhythm that was both reckless and inevitable. The railing creaked, the lantern light flickered, and I saw the urgency in their movements, the knowledge that Paul was far away, but the risk was always there. "Don't stop," she whispered, her voice raw, desperate, and I felt it like a jolt, the intimacy of it, the sin of it. I wanted to turn away, to close my curtains and pretend I'd seen nothing, but I couldn't. Their desire was a drug and I was hooked. The porch was a haze now, the lantern light dimmed the air, thick with their heat. Diane and Caleb were tangled, her robe gone, her body pressed against the railing, his hands claiming her like she was his. I watched from my bedroom window, my cigarette long gone, my heart pounding like I was the one in his arms. The night was quiet, but their world was loud, alive with the sounds of their desire, breaths, sighs, the creak of the railing under their weight. The suburb slept, but I was awake, caught in their fire. "Caleb," she whispered, her voice breaking, a plea and a surrender all at once. He didn't answer, just pressed closer, his lips on her throat, slow and deliberate, leaving marks that would haunt her come morning. I could see it all, the curve of her spine, the sweat on his brow, the way her legs shifted, pulling him closer. My own breath caught my hands, trembling as I gripped the windowsill, my eyes traitors. I wasn't supposed to feel this way, wasn't supposed to let their sin seep into me, but it did, raw and unfiltered. The lantern light buzzed, casting shadows that danced with their movements. His hands were bolder now, sliding down her body, exploring every inch, and she gasped, her nails digging into his shoulders. The sound was intimate, too intimate, and I felt like an intruder, but I couldn't stop watching. I thought of Paul miles away, trusting her, loving her. I thought of the promises she'd made, the life she was betraying. But here she was, giving herself to Caleb, letting him take her apart piece by piece. His lips moved down her chest, slow, deliberate, and she arched into him, her breath coming in sharp, desperate gasps. "Keep going," she murmured, her voice raw, urgent, and I felt the weight of it, the sin of it, like a blade in my chest. The lantern light caught the sweat on her skin, the tension in his arms, and I saw the guilt in her eyes, a flicker of doubt that was quickly drowned by desire. My bedroom was cold, but their world was bright, electric, and I was caught in its pull, my heart racing with a mix of shame and fascination. They moved together, their bodies a rhythm that was both beautiful and damned. The railing creaked, the lantern light flickered, and I saw the urgency in their movements, the knowledge that time was theirs for now, but not forever. His hands were on her hips now, pulling her closer, and she let him, her body yielding, her eyes bright with want. The kiss that followed was fierce, hungry, a collision of desire and regret. I wanted to scream, to bang on my window and stop them, but my voice was gone, swallowed by the heat of their moment. The suburb was silent, but their porch was alive with the sounds of their sin breaths, sighs, the creak of the railing. I was complicit, watching from the dark my bedroom, a silent stage for their fall. The night was theirs, and I was just a shadow, a keeper of their betrayal, my own longing, a traitor I couldn't silence. The suburb stirred, but I was still there, stained by what I'd seen, my heart heavy with their secret. The porch was a world apart now, the lantern light fading, the air heavy with the aftermath of their sin. Diane and Caleb were still tangled, her body pressed against the railing, his hands resting on her hips, possessive, reluctant to let go. The silence was thick, broken only by their ragged breaths, the soft rustle of fabric as they shifted. I watched from my bedroom window, my bourbon glass empty, my heart heavy with their secret. The suburb was waking, the first hints of dawn creeping in, but the weight of what I'd seen was eternal. "Diane," he said, his voice low, almost tender, but there was no tenderness in what they'd done. She opened her eyes, her gaze heavy with guilt and satisfaction, and looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. His hand traced her jaw, slow, possessive, and she leaned into it, her body still yielding even now. The lantern light swayed, catching the glow, and I saw the marks on her skin, the way her robe was a forgotten heap on the ground. It was over, but it wasn't. Their story would linger in her eyes, in his touch, in the lies they'd tell. I thought of Paul miles away, trusting her, loving her, unaware of the fire burning on his porch. I thought of the life they'd built, the promises she was breaking. But here she was, tangled in Caleb's arms, her body marked by his hands, her heart torn between want and regret. The guilt was there in the way her fingers hesitated before touching his face, but it wasn't enough to undo what they'd done. They'd burned too bright, and now they'd have to live with the ashes. Caleb kissed her again, softer this time, like he was trying to hold on to the moment before it slipped away. She let him, her hand sliding down his chest, lingering as if she could keep him there, keep this fire alive. But the night was ending, the suburb, waking up, the first cars humming in the distance. They pulled apart, slow, reluctant, and she stood smoothing her skirt, her robe still on the ground. He watched her, his eyes dark, unreadable, and I felt the weight of it, the truth they'd have to carry. I stepped back from the window, my bedroom dark, the suburb stirring outside. They'd go back to their lives, Diane to Paul, to the life she was supposed to live. Caleb to his youth, his boldness, his secrets. But I'd seen it, the fire, the fall, and it would stay with me, a wound that wouldn't heal. The dawn was breaking, but it didn't feel clean. It felt heavy, like the weight of their sin and mine. I closed my curtains, the suburb's lights fading in the morning haze. Their story was over for now, but it wasn't finished. It would linger in the way Diane moved, in the lies she'd tell, in the guilt that would eat at her. And I'd carry it too, a shadow across the yard, a keeper of their betrayal. The suburb woke, but I was still there, stained by what I'd seen, my heart heavy with their secret. So what do you think? Did this story burn you like it burned me? Smash that like button if you felt the heat, or drop a comment if you've got a secret that's tearing you apart, not feeling it. Tell me why I can handle it. Subscribe for more raw, real tales that'll keep you hooked, and share this with someone who loves a scandal as much as you do. Until next time, keep those secrets tight. Or maybe let them slip.